Have you ever heard of pro wrestling? How about WWE? Do you know the names John Cena, The Rock, or The Undertaker? These are some of the great characters that have been at the top of the business and have now become global icons. So, what is pro wrestling? The best way I can put it as a pro wrestling fan is that it's a sport/performance art. The main reason for pro wrestling is showing off larger-than-life characters that go head-to-head in predetermined combat competition for the sole reason to expand your disbelief and to tell a story. But this is just coming from a fan. Why don't we talk to some people that have actually done it and have gone through the process of becoming a pro wrestler?
Hello everyone, I am here with MCW Pro Wrestling star Gia Scott. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. So speaking about your job, what is your day job and how do you balance that with your pro wrestling career?
So my day job, as awful as it sounds, it's where I go and I make subs, basically Subway, which is it's a mess and a half. But it's hard balancing a day job and wrestling at the same time because people think like, oh, it's easy, like you make a lot of money from this, and sometimes you really don't. You're really honestly sometimes wrestling maybe like 25, 50, maybe up to $100 for that night, depending on where you go and how much you're settling for and whatnot. But balancing both is kind of hard and it's kind of draining sometimes. But in a way, you have to keep something besides wrestling, because as much as I would love to wrestle every single day, I need something on the side to kind of help me out. But it sometimes gets a little hectic because you have to plan out like, okay, I wrestle this day, I have to work tomorrow. Now, what if I get hurt? Well, I have to work through that. Or sometimes you just don't know like how it's gonna be sometimes with your job, because like you have to balance it out. You got to make sure like that you still provide, but you also still do what you love, because at the end of the day, you got to do what makes you happy.
So, what is it like being a woman in pro wrestling today?
Oh my God, it's hard. So, like, it's a lot of work to prove to other people that, like, the girls can still go with the guys. And that, like, okay, we're not just all looks, or that we only go out there just for our looks. Because what I want to prove in wrestling, as far as in the women's division, that, yes, I look pretty, but also I don't know if you can curse on here or not.
No.
Okay. I can still kick your butt. Put it simple. But it's a lot to prove, because some people see it as like, oh, like she's a girl, she can't do this. Like, why is she in there? This is a male sport and whatnot. But like, I don't care about that. Like, I can still go with a guy. Like, it doesn't matter who they are, what they are. Like, I can still go. It doesn't matter what you say at the end of the day. I'm still gonna do me.
Hello everyone, I am here with Dante Caballero. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How about you guys?
I'm doing pretty good. So, what was the process like for becoming a pro wrestler?
So for me, it was a little bit different because I'm originally from Puerto Rico. And in Puerto Rico, like, they really take really seriously wrestling. Like, the culture is like ingrained compared to over here. People already like kind of know it's kind of like entertainment and show. Over there, it's still like, it's the show. I'm not really sure. So a lot of people like protect it, so they don't really leave space for like people that are not either in the family of wrestling or know somebody. So it's really hard for somebody that is not connected in wrestling. So for me, I had to move from Puerto Rico to DC, and from DC I found MCW Pro Wrestling, and from there on out, that's when I started training. So that was like 4 years ago was when I like moved from Puerto Rico to DC, and that's when I started training in MCW.
So what was the process like for creating your character for Dante Caballero?
Well, I had some help from my coaches. Like, I was playing around with a couple characters, like, but since I'm from Puerto Rico, I was looking for, of course, something that was like gonna be using pretty much like my culture behind it. So I pretty much thought about like Héctor Lavoe, which was like a big salsa singer back in like the 70s. I started thinking about also like Pablo Escobar in Colombia. I started thinking about El Capo in Mexico, and thinking about like Scarface, of course, and all that stuff. How did it combine? And well, the name, I thought Dante sounds the same in Spanish and in English. Like Spanish Dante is Dante, and then in English is Dante, so it sounds the same. And then Caballero actually translates to gentleman. Yes, and at the same time, that's the last name of my grandma, which was a really big wrestling fan. So it's almost like a tribute to like me watching wrestling with her. Like I use her last name as my character name. So, yeah.
So, final question. How would you explain pro wrestling to a non-pro wrestling fan or somebody that's never really watched pro wrestling?
Whenever somebody asks that, I always say like, I always ask, for example, like, so everything in Game of Thrones was real? Or like, did Optimus Prime really like arrive on Earth? Did that really happen? Because like, a lot of people like argue, like, for example, like they say that what we do is fake, but I've never heard somebody question Tom Cruise for Mission Impossible being fake. You know, and so the way that I could maybe explain it, if somebody has seen maybe like either a Broadway show or like any theater show, I would pretty much describe it as like a Broadway show with like physicality. So just because, and not only that, but it's live. So like we have only one take. I can't like rehearse my lines beforehand. Like whatever's happening is happening right then and there. So maybe like a Broadway show with punches. You know, like I would like the closest thing would be Broadway and MMA mixed together.
The next person I talked to is a legend in the business, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. You can't be a fan of this sport without hearing this man's name. He's a WWE Hall of Famer and has wrestled the likes of Ric Flair, Randy Savage, Stone Cold Steve Austin, or just Steve Austin. This is before he was Stone Cold. Anyway, if there's anybody who knows anything about pro wrestling, it's this man.
Hello, everyone. I am here with WWE Hall of Famer Ricky the Dragon Steamboat. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Doing good.
How do you think pro wrestling has changed over the years?
You know, when I came along, and of course I was being taught from, you know, guys that wrestled back in the 60s and 70s, because I came along in 75. And storytelling was a big part of entertaining the fans. And one of the catchphrases that we'd like to use was if you were a good worker, but that at the same time would translate into, can you formulate a match and tell a good story to where you capture the fans watching? And we have today, some of the things that I think that have changed is a lot of stuff is geared more for television and pay-per-views. TV and pay-per-view matches that are shorter only because there's a number of guys that you want to be featured during the wrestling hour or wrestling 2 hours or however how long the TV show is or pay-per-view. So consequently, match time has shortened. And I feel that the guys still want to go out there and perform, and we have a bunch of great athletes that can do everything under the moon, but they seem to be wanting to put in so much stuff in such a short period of time that the part about being able to tell the story or take a moment, never really have a chance to get into what would be a storyline for the match. But
well, I feel like a lot of them will say like, oh, that ring doesn't actually hurt, you know, these moves, they don't actually hurt, they're not actually punching each other. So like, I feel like those little kind of, I like lies that, you know, other non-fans are telling people, you know, that do watch wrestling or something like that. I think that's the thing that's really holding them back. They believe in these lies and they don't want to, you know, just like embrace it. They don't want to research it and actually see that this stuff does, you know, like you said, take a toll on your body. It does actually hurt.
You know, there are times to which, you know, I understand what they're saying and say, oh, the punches aren't real and the kicks aren't real. It's up to the person on the receiving end to display himself in a way that the fan watching it, even though the fan knows that the kick and the punches are not 100% kick and punches, but if you can put it, if you can display it and leave the fan with a question mark, and have fans walking away saying, God, I don't know, man, that one kick to Steamboat's head Jeez, did you see the way his head reacted? I mean, it looked like it was knocked backwards, and man, and he sure did look like that he was out of it. You know, I know a lot of the punches may not be up and up, but that one time, that one kick, I know for sure it connected. So it's up to us, you know, as much as it's been put out there that yes, it's choreographed, yes, they don't punch each other 100%, but if you can have them walking away at the end of the night saying or giving examples to each other about that one moment, then you've done your job.
So there you have it. You might still not fully understand it, and that's okay. I don't think a lot of us do either. It's a hard sport to understand, but hopefully you have at least just a little bit more appreciation for these quote-unquote fake fighters.